What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the fourth studio album, a very highly anticipated album from the duo MGMT. It's called Little Dark Age and it's out on Columbia Records. I'm actually kind of shocked that Columbia didn't drop them due to either inactivity or their last self-titled album underperforming. Their last record came out in 2013, and it was a bit polarizing to fans because it was more experimentation, critics weren't huge on it, but honestly, I was one of the defenders of that record. I've been a fan of MGMT for about a decade now, like right on the nose, Oracular Spectacular obviously being their debut, and a couple of the singles like Kids, Time to Pretend, Electric Feel, all smashes, all still gold. That's what got me into this band. A friend shared their music with me, and I'm so grateful because obviously still a fan 10 years later. Their self-titled album was different, but there were many great songs on there like Mystery Disease, Alien Days, cool song number 2, just some absolute jams that you could vibe out to. But before that, they had a little bit of a diverse category in terms of like where people would categorize their albums. You had Oracular Spectacular, which was definitely more poppy, vibrant, colorful. Then Congratulations was a very underrated album, one of their best, and a great album that I came back to recently, and it's just a vibe. It's a trip to listen to, much more in terms of psychedelic, I would say. It leans in that direction, and then obviously the self-titled being a bit more polarizing. Now we have Little Dark Age. That brings you up to speed, and at this point, they are embracing the pop again, and they said they were inspired by Trump getting elected, and that somehow brought pop back out of them. It's not that these songs are overly political whatsoever. In fact, you'd kind of have to dig hard to make ties to the fact that it could be taken as political. It's not in that sense, it's just that somehow it brought feelings out of them, personal and what they saw in the world around them. Now with Little Dark Age, the title track was released as the lead-off single, and I was euphoric, ecstatic the first time I heard this track because I said, yes, that MGMT is back, but they're doing it even better. They're taking it up a notch, and it's just phenomenal. I've probably listened to that song over 100 times since it was released. It was one of my favorite songs of last year. You probably saw it on my best of 2017 list. And yeah, that definitely holds true. Little Dark Age is this great song that embraces a dark synth aura. It's something where you can lose yourself so easily in the production and just the dark trances and edges of this track. But what keeps you coming back and hooked is the way that they shift choruses. MGMT do that sometimes. They'll lay down the chorus the first time and you think you've got it memorized in your head, but they shift it and the song keeps progressing. And that's what I love about this. The fact that this record has pop tendencies, but it's not full-blown pop. They have synth pop, they have electronics, they have guitar, alternative rock. There's a little bit of everything in this record, but at its core, I would definitely say it leans in kind of like a wave of synth pop meets alternative, and that's a great place to be. I'm always so excited when I get to talk about records that I personally love because I feel like that passion bleeds out into the review and hopefully it gets more of you to check out this album. I definitely wasn't one of those people out there lobbying for MGMT to come back to pop or embrace their roots, but I was hoping for something kind of a bit catchier with this record, and I'm so pleased to say that this record has hooks for days. Just the vocal melodies and all of the song structures, the layouts of the synth work in the track, it's all incredible, and the production here has to be commended as well. I think that many people do know that Patrick Wimberly of Chairlift, I should say formerly of Chairlift, a great band and a duo that I love, is doing a lot of the production work here, and he kills it on this LP, especially the title track that I already shouted out. That one is just incredible. So many moments there that you just want to sink your teeth into because it's that good, but also on some of these other moments like TSLAMP, aka Time Spent Looking at My Phone. She Works Out Too Much, which is definitely kind of a throwback, a lot of fun, kind of a sarcastic tune. The way it bounces, my girlfriend actually listened to it and said, this sounds like the We Fit music in a way. And you know what? I can kind of give her that. I can agree with that, except it's like upgraded and obviously very different, but still, it kind of has that appeal to it. It seems gleeful at the surface, but it reminds me of like a workout video from the 80s. And what I was saying about TSLAMP, which is just what I'm going to call it because it's easier to say than Time Spent Looking at My Phone every single time, because this is is one of the best songs here. Holy shit, the hook on that song stays in your head, and it's something that builds up. There's so much build to that track, and there's so much truth and impact in its messages. This track is obviously all about the time that we waste looking at our little screens. Here's mine, let me waste some time right now. It paints us this picture of a society that's so drawn to their screens that they miss the interactions around them. But it doesn't just call everyone out, it also looks inward to realize that they're part of that problem that's not paying attention. We're missing out on so many things that life is probably handing us, but we were too busy looking at our phones. And we're saying, oh, I don't need it, I don't always have to have it. But in this very song, they say that you can close the curtains and try to get away and relax, and at the end of the day, we really just want to get back on our phone and stay connected and see what's going on. I know I fall into this, but even leading up to this, I've been making an active effort not to be so involved, especially when I'm working on things, listening to music, and with people in general. I've always made that a point, and I'm only further leaning towards wanting to do that after listening to this, because it makes you think. And this track, like I said, the chorus, the way that it builds up, it's something like it's out of the 70s or the 80s, just in the way that it leans. And the guitars in this track are incredible too, the way they're used in the backing layers, and that's something I can say for this record in general. Another huge moment that I have to commend here is the track When You Die. That was released as one of the singles, and the guitars in the background of the verses, especially the first verse when you can really hear them, they're just so good. They're off key almost a little bit, not off key, but I would say off kilter. They're colorful and they're very different. That's why they stand out so much to me. And When You Die, just kind of an aggressive track in the way that he's saying hey, I'm not just this nice guy, I have a mean streak too, so go fuck yourself. A huge key to this album's success is the fact that both members of this duo actually sing on the project, whether it be taking the lead momentarily or just doing backing vocals. Obviously Andrew taking the lead the majority of the time, but also Benjamin's contributions cannot go unnoticed. It's something where here, I feel like they had so much creativity flowing in the studio, and it's passionate. The way that it bleeds into these tracks, it's pop ecstasy at times. When you're listening to this and you hear the backing vocals or the harmonies and the way that they get stacked on top of the synths or the guitars and the way that it all comes together, even with an impactful message. Not every song is a grand statement, but it doesn't need to be. It's just, you're listening to this, sometimes maybe for the vibes, sometimes for the lyrical content. It really doesn't matter what you're listening to it for, it's just that you're gonna keep coming back to it. If you enjoy the 80s nostalgia energy and style of the opening cut, She Works Out Too Much, then I think you're really gonna love Me and Michael. This one just reeks of the 80s in the best way possible. Those backing whoa and the way that the vocals kind of stack, harmonize, and the synths on this track are just so obviously of that time, but they're updated a bit obviously for MGMT's style. I like this relationship-centric track seemingly, and the fact that it just really takes off with an explosive chorus, and it kind of fades off into oblivion. I miss getting those fades at the end of tracks sometimes, and this one has the perfect send-off. Another thing that I really respect about this LP is the fact that they chose to use live drums on a lot of these places instead of just something easily shoehorned or programmed or plugged in like so many even rock bands are doing these days. You can hear some absolutely killer drum fills or some steady rocking drums on many of the album's cuts. Yes, there are programmed moments, but even the ones that are seemingly looped and programmed, like on James for example, work incredibly well. In fact, with James, I feel like that's the standout part of the song. There's some great synth work going on there, and I think that's what's got me hooked on it. I don't know how I feel about the lyrics on that one. I will say it feels a bit more mundane in that aspect. It was actually written in honor of their touring member, James, but I can't say that it's the most appealing one here. But I still really like the instrumentation, and that's something I can say for even the tracks that I don't like as much, like When You're Small, which is my least favorite one here, but still, it's kind of a psych trip. It's something where you just want to hear the sounds, and sometimes you kind of drown out the vocals, and you're like, let me focus on what's going on in the guitar. I get this picture of just being in the desert somewhere, and this one lighting up the sky. Hey, speaking of instrumentals, we've got Days That Got Away, which is a hazy tune that really comes to fruition. It's a big payoff on this one, not in the sense that it's so explosive or just so over the top, but in the sense that it's very steady. It's got a calming effect about it in a very weird way, and that one goes perfectly into probably what is one of my top favorite tracks here. Not my favorite, but maybe my second favorite song on the entire LP, Little Dark Age, behind the title title track, of course, we have One Thing Left to Try. I love the knocking synths on this when they just feel wide open in places with the whole wow wow that kicks off, and it goes kind of in the background throughout it, and the higher vocal register on this one too. I think that Andrew really pushed himself on this track, and they channeled some early nostalgia MGMT for me. Hand It Over was another one of the pre-release singles, but it's also the closing track on this album, and I think that it's a nice send-off. It is very silky, just jammable, if that makes sense. You can get lost in the groove of a track like this because if you like MGMT, how are you going to dislike this? How are you going to say no to a song like Hand It Over? This one is smooth. It calls back to like the 60s in the way that they have the kind of call and response in the chorus especially, and I just think it reminds me of a better time in music. I'm so pleased with this LP in general, though. I'd be curious to know what everyone else is thinking of Little Dark Age. Me personally, I'm loving this. I think it's going to have a very strong replay factor. Definitely one of my favorites of 2018 so far. I'm going to give this thing a 4.5 out of 5. Be sure to drop a like on the video, and yeah, let's go to the outro. If you're new to my videos, please hit that subscribe button. I upload several times every single week, and if you're able to support what I do on the channel, then you can help me out on Patreon at this annotation in the corner of the screen. If you would like to see my review of the MGMT self-titled right here, another recent rock or alternative review right over here, social media is linked in the description. Other than that, I'll see you soon on ARTV.